Mr. Chair, I was hoping to give a relatively thoughtful, cerebral speech, but then I heard some slippery comments from the member for Te Atatu, and I think they really do have to be counted. I mean, first of all, we have this baseless claim that somehow in aviation in the regions they've been forgotten. Actually, where Air New Zealand has left in every single case, whether it's Whakatane, whether it's Kaitaia, whether it's Westport, whether it's Taupo, they have new and enhanced services. From little players, Mr. Twyford may like it, they have new and enhanced players with more seats, and I think in most of those cases, bigger planes, or good planes, Mr. Chair. And that may be something that Phil Twyford doesn't like, but actually that's what's happened, and I know because I've talked with the mayors, I've talked with the local players, they feel very confident actually about the situation that they're placed in. We've had this discussion about roading cuts. Well, if you talk with the Greens, all you ever hear is that's all we do spend the money on. Actually, in a sense, neither is any truth to them. Because what is true is in the latest government policy statement, we have increased funding in every single aspect of transport, whether that's local roads, whether that's state highways, whether that's cycling and walking, whether that's improvements or maintenance. That's what we've done. In fact, we have spent an unprecedented amount on transport in this country, higher than OECD averages, and in local roads, I commend to the member an excellent, if I do say so myself, speech I gave in a general debate a few weeks ago, where I ran through the figures, region by region, in local roading, and it made quite clear that in almost all of the areas we have increased funding in local roading. I say to the member, watch the speak. If the facts are wrong, come back to me in question time. Here's what I know, the member won't. Here's what I know, the member won't. The member says, well, actually what it all adds up to is a picture of the regions not being back. Well, again, I refer the member to that speech. The facts don't lie. We have backed the regions. We have spent more in a number of areas. What I wanted to say very briefly, Mr. Speaker, on this, Mr. Chair, on this financial review process, new. It's something of an innovation. We're going thematic. I think that's excellent actually, because it does allow us, Phil Twyford failed the test, but it does allow us just to stand back, be a little bit thematic across what's happening in infrastructure. And in a sense, if we think about the hard infrastructure, it's in energy and transport, what's not to like? $16 billion this government's invested in the last 3 years. I'd say unprecedented. The rebuilding of Canterbury, probably the biggest, if you want to say it this way, project, certainly undertaking in the history of New Zealand infrastructure that this government's doing and making a good job of. But I want to say, I like what the Auckland Airport Chief Executive said to me a little while ago. He doesn't think of his company as a, if you like, an aviation or a port company or an infrastructure company. He sees it as a travel, trade and tourism business. And I think it's a helpful way to think about these things in terms of not the raw infrastructure, the crass way Phil Twyford likes to think about these things, but actually what it means for the end users, how it enables the end users. In that sense, yes, transport is roads, it's rail, it's aviation, but it's also transport, it's travel, it's enabling lifestyles. Yes, energy is transmission and lines and all of these things, smart meters that we've seen unprecedented take up on in New Zealand, where they've mucked up the way of doing it in other countries. But it's also fundamentally for the end user, not the anoraks like Phil Twyford who obsess about, or the gentleman over there who's running for the Green Party leadership, obsess about whether it's a bus or what kind of bus or the colour of the seats. Actually, it's about enabling lifestyles, enabling people to get on with their day. And in energy, it's not about the stuff behind it, it's about turning on the light, it's about powering your iPhone, it's about doing good things. And we've done that well. Actually, infrastructure done well, like it's being done by this government, enables New Zealanders to really get on, to capture the benefits. Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Simon Bridges.
And Mr. Chair, there's significant, just to keep with that, a significant, we'll come to that. There's significant things going on, significant technological innovations happening every day. That's why you've seen me, Mr. Chair, talk quite a lot in this House publicly about electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, UAVs, a number of smart meters, the Internet of Things, because these things are happening. And I think New Zealand, with smart regulation, we're increasingly putting that in place, really can be at the front of all this, making a difference to New Zealand's lives. The Green Party says, of course, this is a government that doesn't think about climate change. I hope actually we demonstrate today that's not true. What is true across infrastructure and transport and energy, they do make up a significant part of our emissions. Of course, about half from agriculture. But the other half, broadly speaking, is transport energy. We think about those things, we are working through them, and technology actually can be a big part of the answer. We as a country have very significant advantages, generally in infrastructure, certainly in energy. I'm really proud of the story that we've had. We've got, I think, a very significant competitive and comparative advantage when it comes to energy. And, that's in renewables. I've just been at the Geothermal World Congress. And remarkable, really, when you think about the story of geothermal from pre-European times through, we have probably the best story in the world. I just wanted to add a little to your water there, Mr. Chair. And that's set to continue. We're doing special things overseas with that. Actually, energy as an export is something, and our expertise and our experience as an export in this area is something I think we should be incredibly proud of as a country. We see Hawkins at the moment with hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts, primarily in Indonesia, but they're looking at Kenya and so on because we've got an amazing story in renewables. We've got a renewable advantage. We should be extremely proud of. I've got to say to the member David Parker, he actually turned up in one or two of the slideshows at this Geothermal World Congress. Admittedly, he was just cutting the ribbon. I'm sure he had nothing to do with the projects, but he was there as well, and we should be. We should be proud of that. We shouldn't, though, like the Greens want us to, forget the non-renewable side of the equation. I know David Parker didn't make that mistake actually in government, even though the opposition now sometimes like to forget. We should actually push in on oil and gas. We should continue what we're doing there because as the world does transition to a lower carbon future, that will be an important part of the mix. The Greens make, I think, the fatal mistake of thinking that all fossil fuels are created the same. They're not. Actually, gas and oil have a significant role to play over time to come. And transport, I've already dealt with a number of the, I think, very wrong-headed complaints of Phil Twyford, who's, frankly speaking, Mr. Chair, just playing politics. We'll be focused in this term of government on results and driving those from the NZTA in terms of those roads of national significance, the regional roading packet, the cycleway, which will deliver a real step change in urban cycleways right around New Zealand. We'll be focused on Auckland, where there are significant transport issues, significantly engaging with Auckland on their issues for the long term. We'll be re-emphasising, actually, that we do have a proud record and there's more that we can do in public transport and the alternative modes. We've spent $1.7 billion on Metropolitan Rail in Auckland, about $500 million in the Greater Wellington area. We'll continue that strong story, as I say, in other areas as well. We're pushing on technology, because as I say, we can capture those benefits really for the advantage of New Zealand. I think there's economic advantage to us in doing so if we do become a leader in some of these areas, UAVs, potentially EVs, autonomous vehicles. We've been a test bed in these areas before and we can be again. And we'll also make clear and continue to re-emphasise that transport and energy and infrastructure can be very strong enablers of economic growth and of productivity, Mr. Chair. And that's why we'll continue to focus on aviation, the good record in the regions, the air services internationally, where we've seen the numbers skyrocket under this government, which means more tourists to New Zealand and more of our goods overseas, on our port strategies and opening up New Zealand to markets regionally and right around the world.
Mr Chair, we have a very strong cross-infrastructural story to tell as a government. We're going to continue pressing in on that and getting results. I'm sorry that you had to put up as a House to Phil Twyford's appalling speech. This government knows what it's doing.
Chair, Mr Chair.